Welcome everyone to a brand new episode of the Jams Tea Podcast, where we spin the jams and spill the tea. We're talking about Limp Bizkit's new album. I can't fucking believe I'm saying these actual words with my face. Limp Bizkit's new album still sucks. Insert joke here. And the new album from progressive metal giants Mastodon. We're going to be talking about Hushed and Grim, as well as we're going to be talking about August's recommended album this week. We're going to be talking about Frank Zappa's Apostrophe. Oh my.
Mm-hmm. And it is special guest week because here on the main episode we have, for the, I don't know if it's the third or fourth time, it's been a few times, but we have Connor back again, this time again on a main episode, but quite importantly we have Connor with us in the same episode as August, which is a first for our two Nebraskan podcast family. So it's really
there can be only one.
Yeah, and this is in fact I think the first time we've had 5 people since Socia left, and so that's kind of weird and cool and fun, and going to be a good episode, I think. And we will also be joined in our record club episode by a very special guest who you will have to wait, and not that it's a famous person, but a very special guest.
It's Frank himself.
We've brought him back.
Guess who's back? Back again.
Connor's shirt implies that he's in fact a necromancer. He brought him back from the dead.
Yeah. So you'll have
to wait. Anyway, this bit's
that.
Terrible. Let's get moving.
It really is.
But anyway, I don't think we have anything special to plug. Obviously, last week we did a great episode where we reviewed the new albums from The War on Drugs and KO. And we also did a really cool record club on Linkin Park's Meteora. Both of those videos are really sick. Go and check those out if you have not already. But without further ado, let's get into the first segment of our episode, which is what we have been listening to. Jake, what have you been listening to in the last 7 days?
Well, I think it's only appropriate that I begin with the major thing I've been listening to, and I'm sure that I don't speak for just myself, as this podcast has become Mastodon pilled. So after saying that I was not exactly as floored by Crack the Sky as the other people in this podcast, I was just like, you know what? I need to properly listen to all their records so I can start forming an opinion on them. And I listened to Blood Mountain. And Blood Mountain was the key that unlocked the puzzle box, because I went back and enjoyed even the Mastodon albums that I had heard before, and I enjoyed them even more. Blood Mountain, of course, being my favorite of the bunch right now. It's amazing to me how we on the podcast last week had Tyler and Morgan went through the entire concept of
Crack the Sky
and its insane story. And Blood Mountain here is the album they made before this one. This is still one of those like conceptual Mastodon albums. And it's so funny that it's like, oh, this person fucking astral projects and gets lost to the spirit realm. The sun burns up the fucking umbilical cord and he finds Rasputin and Satan. And Blood Mountain is just like, hey, dude, what if a bunch of weird shit happened when you were on a mountain? Like, that's literally it. I love this band. I didn't expect to love them as much as I do now, but I'm very, very glad that I did. I really think that like their 2010s run, as like much as I kind of agree with the notion that it's just like, yeah, there's sort of the prevailing sentiment of, oh, the band made all their good stuff in the 2000s, their 2010s run isn't as good. And yeah, the most of the albums that I would put in my higher half of their ranking are in the 2000s, but 2010s records are too good to ignore. It's stuff like Around the Sun and The Hunter, like essential listens, if you ask me. So those are totally worth checking out too. There's not a miss in that band. I've gone from just liking that band to truly like basically like the lowest rated album of theirs I have is Emperor of Sand, and that's still like a hard 7 out of 10. Still a good ass album. But I will give a shout out to The Hunter, which is their first of the 2010s albums. Definitely not as highly regarded as some of their other stuff, and I love that record. I think it's fan-fucking-tastic. Some of my favorite Mastodon songs are on there, like Spectre Light and Stargasm, shit that just goes unbelievably fucking hard. As Connor said multiple times this week, do you ever just kill a man because he killed your goat? And you know, maybe. I mean, maybe I need some fucking music to rock some buddy's shit to. I don't know. But yeah, I'm very glad I finally took the plunge there. I described them as basically like the mindset that helped me get into it is that like Mastodon are basically the Mars Volta of American progressive metal, which is a very specific very specific designation. And then I figured out that Blood Mountain, my favorite Mastodon album, features fucking Omar Rodriguez Lopez or Cedric Bixler Zavala. I can't remember which one of the two. It features one of them in the latter half of the track list, so maybe I'm on to something. I don't fucking know. But yeah, I successfully was Mastodon pilled. You all have won. Crack the Sky is an incredible record.
People are saying this.
I listened. You know what? And people are right. I fair enough. I had to get used to that one dude's voice, but I did, and I also just kind of like the fact that Mastodon have a lot of blues in them, and I didn't really expect that, and I think that helped me adjust to some of the like proclivities that I wasn't exactly too keen on before. Like once I really started viewing them as a truly progressive band, that's kind of when everything unlocked for me. I just kind of treated them like a metal band before, as weird as that sounds. Let's see here. And I also listened to, that wasn't the only discography I got into this week. I also, very recently, but because of the new gigantic Beach House double album, it's going to be released at the beginning of next year, I decided to listen to the discography of Beach House in one day. And
you did the whole discography?
And yeah, last night, I had a lot of time on my hands. Yeah. And I have to say, my favorite before was Bloom. I mentioned that on the podcast here. I love Bloom to death. I think it's a great fucking record, but it's not my favorite anymore. I would say that narrowly goes to Seven, which is their most recent album, I think.
Yep.
Is it?
Yep.
Okay. But Seven is amazing. I love that album mainly because of, this is a very specific thing to love an album for, but I love that album because of the drum machines. Oh my God, the way that they just like, they fucking, it's like they cascade along the edges of your frontal cortex whenever you listen to it. And it's just the best feeling in the world.
That fucking drum fill that opens up Dark Spring at the start of the record that just like throws you into it. That's such a great drum fill.
Oh God, that... It's a little difficult right now to parse through what makes each Beach House album different, because I've only like really listened to Depression Cherry and Bloom before all of this. So my thoughts aren't fully fleshed out, but I can say with 100% certainty that Beach House are like a future favorite band in the making, just because these guys simply do not miss. And not only do they not miss, it's just like they don't skirt by on the fact that they have a couple, like one or two lesser records. Like, no, everything they've made is great. And sort of on the notion of dream pop and what have you, I also listened to a 2-hour-long double album, a band called Lycia, their double album, The Burning Circle and Then Dust, which I found because I discovered one of my favorite subgenres of music is ethereal wave, according to Rate Your Music, which tons of things fall under the umbrella term of, including Beach House, lots of dream pop, Chelsea Wolfe,
sounds gay as fuck.
The Cure. I mean, does it not make sense?
It reminds me
There's
of
no
that.
heterosexual explanation for
It
this.
reminds me of that passage from Obama's book where he talks about the ethereal
bisexual. See, reggae music is being kind. They couldn't just put as a tag that was just like music to suck dick to. So they called it ethereal wave. Yeah, exactly. But the Burning Circle and then Dust, I know that it's probably exceptionally difficult to recommend such an experience to somebody, but oh my fucking god, holy fucking shit, this album was amazing. I had no context for this band other than like I went into that genre tag and downloaded like all of the highest rated albums from it that I didn't like. There was also stuff like Dead Can Dance, just tons of shit. And this, however, is very distinctly, it's like if you like that sort of dream pop shoegaze of something like Beach House, but specifically stuff like Cocteau Twins, specifically the work they did with Harold Budd, very, very specifically reminded me of that. And also Disintegration era, The Cure, that's a really big one too. The male vocal presence on this one is very similar to that. The front half of the record is this really like dark ambient synth stuff that's like it's really eerie. It's really like, honestly, a lot of it reminded me of Opeth's Damnation at points. And I can't stress this enough, is that, yeah, this is like a dream pop ambient sort of like record and all that. But also the guitar work on this album is fucking mind-blowing. Like, you'll just be sitting there hearing the most gorgeous soundscape of all time, and then all of a sudden something will come in with like, and you're just like, whoa, wait, what? But it is completely congruous with what comes before it, and it sounds absolutely fucking beautiful. It's fucking orgasmic. And then the second half of the album is this like really like, it's sort of inverted. It's this insanely like, it feels like you are slowly ascending. It's beautiful, it's bright, it's shimmering. Even though it's almost 2 hours long, I struggled with getting through none of it. If you have to break it down into two separate listens, the first disc and the second disc, I highly recommend it because it's one of my favorite things I've listened to this year. I listened to, big one for me, another big one. I listened to the self-titled Viet Cong.
Holy shit, right?
Why I'm so, whenever you and Zach lose your minds about something in the music chat, what I need to do is I need to not keep listening to what you're saying and just go fucking listen to what you're talking about. Because, like, what the fuck? Oh god, that album is so fucking good. Oh man, I love it. It's an album that simply is constantly in the process of getting better on a second by second basis. That shit bangs so fucking hard. It's so loud. It's so impactful. It's like one of the most aggressive post-punk albums I think I've ever heard, but almost like it is uncompromising, but almost in like not really in an unfriendly way. Like, I would recommend this album to like anyone who wants to get into like that genre, especially like the revival of like the 2010s.
Absolutely,
sort of stuff that people 100%. Are going for. Like, and the cool thing about it too is that like if you told me that this album came from like 1991, I'd believe you, because it sounds like it was made with like older instruments and recording equipment.
It reminds me of like
amazing.
It reminds me of like 1979, 1980 era, like This Heat, like those kind of early post-punk / no wave bands who are really like doing like really just absurd sounds within the context of that shit. And yeah, it's loud, it's abrasive, it just fucking pummels you. I completely co-sign the notion that it would be a great album to sort of get people into this sort of sound, because it's just so like, you know, hard hitting. And yeah, it just rewards
that's a hard recommend to like everybody. There's not a person I know who I don't think would enjoy that, especially you, Morgan. I think you would fuck with this heavily if you haven't heard it already. And I'm also going to check out like the rest of like the Preoccupations and like that sort of adjacent bands. I need to listen to like fucking all of that.
Yeah. I've suggested before, like, because there's like the people who made that record also were in two other bands who are like basically
Public
the same
Strain's
band.
one of them, right?
So the first band is called Women, and they made two albums, a self-titled record and Public Strain. And then I think the front man or one of this vocalist died, and so they reformed as Viet Cong and did the Viet Cong album. And then they changed then that band
Preoccupations
changed its name to Preoccupations, and have made subsequent records as well. And I've suggested getting Zach involved and doing like a video where we just talk about some of those records, because they're all really like tight, focused, easy listens, but they're also like strange and weird and stuff. Like, I think there's a heavy chance you'd fuck with Public Strain as well. That record is very great in my opinion. Long story short being, it's a bit confusing to see like all these different band names and disentangle them, but the point is the records slap. Like, the records are really fucking good. And the Viet Cong album is the best of them.
Yeah, I'm so fucking in for all that. I won't really talk about if you're wondering, perhaps if you're just like, did they decide to cover a Limp Bizkit album this week? Long story short, not initially. I won't really talk about these two albums just because they're obviously why we turned to something a bit more interesting. But I listened to the new Emma Ruth Rundle album, Louisville, Kentucky singer-songwriter Emma Ruth Rundle's new album, Engine of Hell. And I also listened to the new album by Snail Mail, Valentine, their follow-up to Lush. And both of them I found to be fine. They're both fine. They're both not bad, but they're both a far cry from what I think both of those artists are capable of doing. I found the Emma Ruth Rundle project to be disappointingly stripped back and kind of dry. I kind of figured that her experimenting with the metal band Thou would like lead her to maybe go in a more interesting direction with her sound, and instead it's just kind of plaintive songs that, you know, lyrically they're good, but you know, it's not exactly up to snuff with the rest of her work. And the same thing with Snail Mail really is that it's fine, it's pleasant.
I listened to the Snail Mail record a couple of times. I think I broadly agree that it's a little underwhelming, but I will say that I the second time I listened to it and sort of paid more attention to the songwriting, I do think this, like, the songwriting, the lyricism is quite sharp. I think maybe even sharper than her first record, but it is just kind of like, there's moments where that record kind of just feels a little too sort of subdued musically for its own good. And it's kind of annoying as well, because you can sense, like, on the first few songs of it that she's trying to really reach and make sort of bigger music than she made on Lush. And one of my problems with Lush was that record was so samey from front to back as well. So I can sense that she's really trying to, like, you know, reach out and be more sort of poppy and stuff. It's just, it's not quite there yet. But I really, really, really want to get fully on board with a Snail Mail record at some point, because I love the song Pristine off of her debut so much. That's one of my favorite songs of the decade. And I feel like she has the capability of making like a really great record. She's still really young. Like, she's younger than most of us, I think. And so I think she can do it, but it's just not quite there yet for me. But I wanted to shout it out as well as you, because I think that, you know, even though we weren't huge on it, I think people who are into that sort of niche might enjoy it more than us.
To sort of combine sort of half segment that I do with the Emma Ruth Rundle and that thing, other thing is that I'll talk about something that also isn't worth fully covering, but warrants a mention, is that I got my fucking Kid Amnesia vinyl the other day in the mail, and naturally I put on that shit and listened to Kid A, I listened to Amnesiac and the unreleased stuff. Opinion on both the Radiohead albums has not changed. Go watch the Radiohead retrospective where we cover every single Radiohead album. To put the final period on it, to cover that last bit of Radiohead content, it's okay, it's fine. there's not a whole lot that's really worth covering. The most substantial things that they released were the singles that they put out sort of up until Kid Amnesia's release, which I like both of the singles a fair bit, frankly. I think they're just as good as the other songs that I really, really like on the Amnesiac sort of B-sides thing, and I'm going to add them and sort of make my own Kid Amnesia thing that we kind of talked about, where I sort of, well, really it's just make my own version of Amnesiac that I actually like listening to. But there's just a lot of stuff on this where it just sort of feels like maybe they didn't really have enough for like a full release, and they just really kind of got some scraps of audio that they had during these sessions and semi-fleshed them out. I will say the version of Morning Bell that they released with the new stuff is definitely preferable to the Amnesiac version of Morning Bell. And there's a couple moments like the string version of, like, the solely string version of How to Disappear is great. But you know, We Been New, any version of that song is going to be awesome. The True Love Waits mashup of that, and I think that's also How to Disappear completely. It's with another song that's from those sessions. I can't remember which.
It's a mashup with Pulp Pull Revolving Door.
Oh, Pulp. That's interesting. I don't really know. I would listen to that over either of the songs that it mashes up, but it's certainly interesting. There's a couple songs in there that are worth listening to if you're a Radiohead fan, so go through it if you do. But like, this is not something that, you know, if you're a Radiohead, that you need to like put everything down and go listen to. It's just like,
I would second basically that. Like, if you're a Radiohead fan, it's worth checking out. Like, you'll get a kick out of some of these alternate versions.
Totally.
Like,
especially if you're fond of Kid A and Amnesiac.
I really dug the alternate versions of. I think I concur with the alternate version of How to Disappear completely is sublime. But of course, how could it not be? But I also really dug the alternate versions of Like Spinning Plates and Fog, which are both some of my favorite songs of the sessions and have really good alternate versions on this as well. So worth checking out, worth dipping into, but nothing worth writing home about. I agree.
Yeah.
August, what have you been listening to in the last 7 days?
So this week started off with a considerable low point. We were kind of scrambling to find things to cover for the podcast. So I listened to the new ABBA album, Voyager.
I believe it's just Voyage.
Just Voyage?
Yeah.
Oh, okay. I didn't. I just kind of. I knew it was something with that words in it. I hated it. This is one of the most unbearable things I've heard all year. The songwriting is just tacky, dorky, stupid shit. It just sounded so. The instruments just sounded so colorless and dead. It was just an unbearable listen. I made it through it like once, and I was like, that's all I need this in my life for.
How familiar are you with the back catalog of ABBA? Not
horribly. They've never struck me as someone I'd care a lot for.
Yeah. So. Well, there we go. That's not surprising. The general consensus I've heard is that if you're an ABBA fan, you'll like it. If you're not an ABBA fan, you won't like it. Like, it's like, yeah. So there's that.
Well,
heard it uses MIDI instruments or some shit like that.
Oh, it sounds like it does.
Yeah, it wouldn't surprise me. They're all like fucking 80 at this point. Like, they can't play a fucking instrument.
Like if they like press down too hard on a guitar string, their bones snap. But so the next thing I listened to was a good thing. It was Glenn Branca's The Ascension. No wave classic. I was glad it was entirely instrumental. That's the best thing about it. I don't have to hear someone's stupid voice. But no, I love the composition of this, the progression of it, the aggression of it. It's just a solid ass album. I was really compelled by it, really thrilled by it, loved every moment. Not every moment. There was like one song that was a little duller than the others, but most of it was really fun. Liked it a lot. It's my favorite album, called The Ascension, probably. I'm sure that title is, an intentional parody of the Coltrane album.
Could well be. They're both,
I mean,
they're both batshit crazy.
I have to think it is, just because like the covers are both this like figure on this kind of black and white figure on this white background. So it just seems like too much of a coincidence that these minor and major elements of the record would be similar, that it's not kind of poking fun at it. But Glenn Branca's dead, so we can't ask him. Continuing on, a very special album I listened to. So now I love the song "Standing Outside a Broken Phone Booth with Money in My Hand" by the band Primitive Radio Gods. And
one of the best songs ever.
One of the best songs ever. It's great.
Just like, yeah, I mean, a song that makes me incredibly emotional, and I know we've just talked about it this week as well, August, so I know you feel similarly. It's just an incredibly beautiful and tender and lyrically wonderful and instrumentally gorgeous song, radiant piano chords, great, amazing guitar solo outro. It's just sort of stunning.
The noisy stuff at the very end is just incredible.
Like, so I listened to Rocket, their first album,
and the album with the song on it, to be clear,
with the song on it. Yes.
Yep.
Wow. Talk about a valley of quality. This is some of the worst shit I've ever heard outside of this song. But granted, there are 3 other songs on here I find absolutely hilarious. So we've got Woman, the first song on here, which starts with this really like stilted kind of drum machine thing that just sounds like total crap.
Women. He's just like, women.
It's like just the most embarrassing song ever. But then it's topped by the song Motherfucker, which is maybe the funniest song of all time, because every production decision on this track is inept. Every single one, from like the stilted weird guitar solo after the chorus. This song is so transcendently funny because every moment is like trying to convince you this band sucks. And then it's followed by one of the greatest songs ever. Then there's a run of like 5 songs that are the most boring song ever and suck and are bad. Terrible writing. Like I can't even name, like, hum a melody from like the Rise and Fall of O's Mao or
Where the Monkey Meets the Man
or Chain
That's
Reaction.
the worst fucking song of all time.
They're so bad. From like,
but there's one, August, that I suspect you're building up to talk about.
Oh yes.
Yeah.
Skin Turns Blue. This is an anthem against racism, about loving your neighbor as you love yourself. And then so in this anthem about not being racist, lead singer drops the hard R N word in a line that I paraphrased as being love whites and N-words all the same. Well, that's basically the context of it.
It's even funnier than that. Like the actual phrasing of it is so funny. It's, when will you realize that you hate is your brother? And it's like he just says it with a hard R, and it's like so like jarring and like just
like I dropped my phone when I first heard that. What?
He's like doing it so soulfully as well. Like, when will you realize the
bleep you hate is your brother? And it's such a good song. And then it ends with Rocket, which is a boring piece of shit song no one should ever listen to. But listen to those 4 songs as like an EP, and it's like
I'm all right.
3 embarrassing tracks and 1 master. You know what? Just listen to Standing Outside a Broken Phone
Yeah,
Booth with
we can't impress.
song's
We
Yeah.
can't impress this enough. Me, August, and Connor. Standing Outside a Broken Phone Booth is one of the greatest songs of all time, and the
Yes, it
rest
is.
of this album is one of the worst albums ever made. And the fact that these two things exist simultaneously, these two facts are true, is it's difficult to understand and fathom, and it's kept me
doesn't
awake at
make
night.
sense.
It's
It doesn't make sense.
yeah, it's like
it's like Schrodinger's album quality.
you have in trying to rack my brains for explanations for this, I have to imagine like they made some kind of deal with Satan to like write one of the greatest songs of all time, but the fucking monkey's paw curled and every other song they wrote was one of the worst pieces of shit
Like,
you've ever heard.
It's kind of like the movie Yesterday, which is a horrible movie, but it's because in that movie he like obviously steals the Beatles songs, but then he tries to write like his own song, and they're like, "Yeah, this is a terrible song," but they only like it's like he, it's like he
the
like
real life version of that, and the
Yeah,
community of
exactly,
Radio
and he
Gods have,
only-
like dipped into
They
a
only
parallel
remembered
universe
one
to steal.
song from another
Yeah.
band.
Yeah,
it's just jarring when you put the song on. Like if you get the album and you like put on Standing Outside a Broken Phone Booth, it's just so beautiful and so amazingly. And then next song, Jose.
It's exactly
So-
it's so bad.
yeah.
It's like 90s rock
They
version
sound
of,
like Broken Creed.
it sounds like the 90s rock version of Beach Boys' Summer in Paradise,
Mhm.
which if you've ever heard that,
Ah,
that's
Just-
actually what it sounds like.
Yeah, don't listen to the album unless you
No.
enjoy Pain, but do listen to the song.
One
No,
song.
I love
that song.
Pain though, so that's
Yeah.
why I listened to it. Another thing I listened to was from UK house producer Andy Stott, his album Luxury Problems from 2012. It's it's really interesting. It's got a lot of industrial kind of tinges to the production. It's really heady. It's a great like headphone late night listen. And also, I would presume a great listen in a proper club setting where the bass can be just unfathomably loud. This album is it's really nice. It's really tight, like 48, 50 minutes. It's short. It's just a punchy, fun listen. Gets my recommendation.
I haven't heard this particular Andy Stott record, but I have heard the song Sleepless, which I absolutely love. Like that's an amazing track. So I have to listen to this album.
Yeah, no, it is well worth your while. And the final thing I'll shout out is actually something we've reviewed that I was not here for, but I've been listening to a lot. So I wanted to get my opinion on.
Oh, okay.
And
I'm
that
excited for this.
being Injury Reserves by the time I get to Phoenix,
Yeah.
which
Yeah.
is an album I liked initially and thought it was good. But I feel I've come around all the way to loving this album and just properly adoring it. I think the production is just the best thing about it. It's so abrasive and kind of out there.
Yeah, August. The most thing I was most sad about when you couldn't be on that episode was that I had no one to talk about how awesome the Brian Eno sample and the closing track of that record.
Yes.
Oh,
That
man.
was so good.
Yeah,
Fucking
it's
beautiful.
just fucking amazing. Ugh.
Yeah. I like the album a lot. I'm actually very partial to the first song on that album when it just gives way to that weird heady synth passage in the back half.
Yeah, it's good. Good shit.
But I like the album a lot. There's a couple lesser moments on it, but I think the high moments definitely make up for the tracks I'm not as fond of. And I find kind of just the sweet experience of it as a 41-minute thing is really good, powerful. I love it a lot. Yeah.
Beautiful.
That's what I've been listening to.
The only thing Of note that I've been listening to this past week is just a shitload of Mastodon naturally.
Fuck yeah.
So I won't say much about that here. Should probably just get more into the review itself. So
cool. All right then.
Anyway.
I'll go next then, and because I want to talk about. I have been on a deep dive myself. I've also deep dived into the records of Mastodon, which I will refer to, I guess, when we talk about the new record. So I won't get into that here. But the other deep dive I've done this week has been into the discography of one Limp Bizkit, the other band that we're reviewing today.
If you're thinking you should feel concerned for Tyler, audience, you should be, because we're concerned too. We need to have an intervention with you.
I can't.
I said my piece, Chrissy.
I can't give you a good reason for why I did this. I think part of it was like I wanted to sort of coming off of our Linkin Park discussion last week as well. I was like, and from like earlier in the year when I started listening to like Slipknot and stuff, I was like really wanting to immerse myself in like nu metal history, both the good and the bad, just to kind of really hear these seminal records and like, you know, experience that music. So I have more reference points when we talk about it in the future. So I was like, I really do want to listen to, just hear those classic Limp Bizkit records like $3 Bill and Significant Other, and of course Chocolate Starfish and the Hot Dog Water. So I was like, I'm going to listen to those to prep for Limp Bizkit. And then I realized like, well, if I listen to those, that's already like half their discography. So why don't I just like I did with Eminem last year, why don't I just do the whole fucking thing and just, you know, and then I'll be able to say I've listened to every Limp Bizkit record. And, you know, I know that's probably, you know, not a good enough reason, but fuck you, I did it anyway. And I actually there were definitely times where I did want to slice my throat a bit, but broadly, I would say that it was kind of it was a fulfilling experience in a strange way. Like just about every Limp Bizkit record, I think, has similar sorts of high points in terms of like things they do that, you know, you expect from Limp Bizkit and you kind of can get a bit of a kick out of, and stuff they do that is not good, not fundamentally
is fucked. Everybody sucks.
Fundamentally misguided. And I think the thing that you know, the worst thing that Limp Bizkit do, the thing that is in common with basically all the worst Limp Bizkit songs is the moments when they sort of take themselves really seriously, when Fred Durst tries to be a serious songwriter, and that is something he tries to do with unfortunate frequency. It's a big part of the reason why their 2003 album Results May Vary is handily the worst thing they've ever made, because it is, you know, the alt rock record, which the album that spawned the absolutely torrid cover of the Who's Behind Blue Eyes that I had no idea that Limp Bizkit were actually the band that were responsible for this cover.
Or the film Gothica.
I had a moment.
Oh my God, really?
Oh yeah.
Oh fuck, I didn't know that.
He makes out with Halle Berry in the music video.
I had a moment listening to that album when that song started, and it was like I realized quickly, wait, this is this song. And I had no idea that Limp Bizkit were the band that did this cover. This cover, which I like to be the bad man. This cover, which I had heard, you know, I must have heard this at least 50 times in my childhood, just, you know, absorbing it in the most shitty locations possible on the shittiest radio stations possible. And like Who's Next by The Who is an amazing record, one of my favorite records of its time. And that song on that record hits. It's a really good song. Limp Bizkit find a way to transform the song into one of the worst things you've ever heard without changing much about it at all. Like, it's a pretty faithful cover. There's a weird speak and spell bridge thing with a vocoder that I can't even bring myself to imagine the train of thought that led to that. But, you know, broadly speaking, it's a pretty faithful cover. It just sounds like dog shit. So that's one thing.
What podunk hick parts of New Zealand were you hanging around in to hear this song?
Like, you I guess, underestimate the extent to which butt rock, nu metal, all this early 2000s shit permeated all of Western culture. Like it did not stay in Hickville. It transcended. And so that's the Behind Blue Eyes cover is sort of emblematic of the worst tendencies of Limp Bizkit. But I had a brief interaction with a fan of our podcast, Andy, who considers himself a Limp Bizkit fan, and was hoping I would enjoy Limp Bizkit and stuff. And so I want to say that there are aspects of what Limp Bizkit do that I do find fun and enjoyable and funny, especially when they lean into it. I do think they have good songs. Against my better judgment, I enjoy songs like Nookie and Break Stuff, and Rearranged and other songs also. So yeah, and I think that Significant Other, which is sort of the album that they blew up with and has those songs on it, is their best record. I think it has a really solid first half with some really decent songs, and I think that what you would want to get out of Limp Bizkit, the experience you'd hope to have, you can get from that record pretty reliably. I think there are some weirder moments in their discography that are kind of fascinating in their own way, like on their debut record, which is very kind of like, very much them finding out their sound. It's very kind of thrashy and loud and very obnoxious, but it also ends with this like 16-minute psychedelic instrumental jam that's like quite good, and it's very strange to have that experience on a Limp Bizkit record. I will say probably the most remarkable experience I had listening to any of these albums was, of course, the experience of listening to Chocolate Starfish and the Hot Dog Flavored Water for the first time, which is... So, look, Significant Other and Chocolate Starfish are both produced by the legendary Terry Date, who produced Deftones' fucking White Pony around the same time as he was producing these records. Now, Significant Other actually is produced pretty well. Like, I'd say it's the best sounding Limp Bizkit record by some margin, which makes it even more bewildering that Chocolate Starfish sounds so incredibly awful from a production standpoint. Like, outside of just the songs themselves, which suck, it sounds like fried asshole. It sounds like I think Jake said this week that he must have put so much energy into White Pony that this was like barely what was left or something like that. And it's that, or literally Fred Durst kind of tied the man up and demanded that he make it sound as bad as possible, because there's a lot of references to poop and shit and assholes and cock and pussy on this album. Like, it's very like that's Fred is very much in that mode. It opens with, if you disregard the intro, which you should always disregard the intros on every single Limp Bizkit record because they're always fucking turgid, but the first proper song on this album is a song called Hot Dog, which is a diss track against Trent Reznor of Nine Inch Nails. It's absolutely bewildering.
Some real Mad Men, I don't think about you at all energy right there.
It's absolutely strange and bizarre to experience, and I'm just going to read you some of the lyrics of this diss track, because what initially caught my eye was the line, "A 9-inch nail gonna get knocked the fuck out," which was like, okay, that's clearly a diss. What's also notable about the song is that I believe Fred Durst says the word fucked something like, or fuck, or variations on fuck, something like 50, 60 times. Like, it's notorious for the fact that he says fuck multiple times in just about every line. But the chorus is so funny in the context of this Nine Inch Nails diss shit. It is literally, you want to fuck me like an animal. You like to burn me on the inside. You like to think that I am a perfect drug. Just know that nothing you do will bring you closer to me. Like,
what? What
Ooh.
the fuck? I mean, like, it's fucked up face. I love the idea that it's just like a 9-inch nail gonna get knocked the fuck out. Look at Trent Reznor post the downward spiral and look me in the eye and tell me that he would not lay Fred Durst the fuck out.
Well, the thing is, it's like even the opposite direction, because 99 2000 was when Trent was at his lowest. Like he was at his most at the fucking depths of his heroin addiction.
I'm talking with teeth, Trent Reznor.
Yeah, I mean, absolutely with teeth, Trent Reznor would. But like, you're dissing a man who is like visibly on his records, you know, near death. Like, absolutely.
Yes.
You're dissing this man who, like, it's like the optics of that. Like, what do you try? It's like it's punching down in the most like pathetic way at someone.
Trent Reznor is punching at himself. Like,
yeah, exactly. So yeah, and the rest of Chocolate Starfish is just unbearable. Of course, the Behind Blue Eyes cover is not the first instance in discography where they reference the Who, because you of course have the classic single My Generation, which interpolates the classic Who song to disastrous effect. You have the
idea that Fred Durst listens to the Who. That just infuriates me.
You have the two versions of the classic Limp Bizkit staple Rollin', one of which is fine, very kind of obnoxious, but kind of in that goofy way that you can sometimes get on board with, and the other of which is twice as long and probably the bottom 3 songs they've ever released. The thing is, like, this album is shit, and then like it's shit for like an hour, and then like there's another 20 minutes at the end of nothing. And I don't mean silence, I just mean like nothing. Like there's a 10-minute outro that's like 8 minutes of it is just Ben Stiller laughing. And it's like, it's so strange. I don't understand. Like, it's the longest album I've ever heard. And I mean that, like, I genuinely have not had an experience.
Fuck you, swans.
No, I genuinely have not had an experience with an album that has felt longer than this has. And I mean, fucking props to them for achieving that, I guess. There's a fucking disastrous song, like where it's one of their more serious ones called Take a Look Around, where it's like a society type song. And and the main melody of this track is the Mission Impossible theme.
Yeah, you showed us that.
Yeah, you sensed this.
I did. And it's the most kind of bewildering and like confusing thing ever. Like they do like there's a moment where they do like the full Mission Impossible melody, but they do it like a chugga metal riff version of it, and it's the most hilarious thing in the world. Yeah, so, and the rest of the discography is pretty unremarkable. Like Results May Vary is somehow an even worse record by virtue of making more consistently bewildering decisions. I have, to my great tragic sadness, had the song Red Light Green Light with Snoop Dogg stuck in my head for days now. Intonation, the voice that Snoop Dogg, just the way that he sounds, like it's the most annoying shit in the world. He's like red light green light, red light green light, tell me, are you ready to go? Like that's what Snoop Dogg is doing for like 6 minutes. It's just,
that's like Prince on ketamine.
Like it's a song about wanting to fuck, right? Because that's all that Snoop Dogg does, really. Like when he's not gangster rapping, but he sings like he's playing with a toddler. Like, I don't get it. I don't understand.
To call back to an August joke earlier on this show this year, that's what you want to associate with sexual intercourse. Children.
Yeah. I don't understand. I mean, I don't understand. Yeah. So there's that. There's the often buried and forgotten about album they made after Results May Vary called this is the most hilarious title in their discography to me.
The unclearness is very clear.
It's called The Unquestionable Truth Part 1, and there is no part 2.
There's not a part 2?
There's no part 2. And it is a song, like it is so this came out in 2005. It's like so obviously they heard Green Day's American Idiot and thought, we need to make an album like this. And the problem with it is that it is so half-baked. Like, it may be the most half-baked release that they've put out, including the new one. It's only 30 minutes. It's really short. So it feels
Thank
like
God.
It feels like, yeah, they were planning on doing like a series of short albums, I guess. I don't know. but like the whole thing is like it's society bottom text the whole way down. It is just the most like it's yeah, every song is trying to be like fucking Jesus of Suburbia, but they can't even be bothered to finish writing it. It's awful. It's so bad.
I walk a lonely road.
It's so bad. Like the opening track is called The Propaganda, and it's every bit as asinine as you would expect. It's like the worst tendencies of fucking A Perfect Circle, but fused with Limp Bizkit. It's just so annoying. I hate it. And speaking of A Perfect Circle and fucking Maynard James Keenan, one thing I noticed about early Limp Bizkit and particularly Chocolate Starfish is how much this band apes Tool, weirdly enough. Like when they're not doing their thrashy, hard-hitting throwdown riffs and they're just doing like more moody shit, they're literally just doing ripping off Tool. Like they're literally just doing the Tool sound, like the Tool bass tone, the Tool kind of like, shit. And it's like, that was a really surreal aspect of their sound that I was really off-putting. Then you have their last record, 2011's Gold Cobra, which is a big, shiny fucking turd. Like it's clearly like produced like with okay, let's make a sharp sounding late 2000s, early 2010s record. And it's just unbearable. It manages to be almost worse than the Chocolate Starfish. Results may vary. Double feature, although those two kind of do take the cake. There's just, at this point there's really just not much to say. It's bad. It's just really fucking bad. At this point I was just like, I just need to get through this. And then that brings us to the present day, which we'll get to later in the episode. Other things I listened to this week, I actually listened to a lot, but I'm not going to talk about all of it because a lot of it was kind of just building up for the episodes we're recording today. But I will shout out, I listened to a couple of Mothers of Invention records. I listened to The Grand Wazoo and Overnight Sensation, both of which I enjoyed greatly. They were very fun. They're great. They're quite distinct records. Like The Grand Wazoo, despite its ostentatious title, is a much moodier record than I think anything I've heard from Zappa, but it has like quite a lot of sort of kinetic beauty in the playing, and it's some really solid, beautiful jazz music. Like it very much feels like Zappa and the Mothers trying to make their version of In a Silent Way. And it's really solid. It's really strong. The title track is particularly fantastic. I think I enjoy Overnight Sensation a bit more because it's just a little bit more in your face and a little bit more what I'm expecting from the Mothers. But that said, I feel like the Grand Wazoo might have a little bit more staying power and be a record that's a little easier to put on in general, regardless of how you're feeling. Jake shouted out that one track on Overnight Sensation last week, I think.
Dynamo Hum.
And
I will say
that truly is something that has to be heard to be believed. That's quite the story that he tells there.
Gosh, that album,
Dynamo Hum.
That album just has so many great, memorable riffs on it. Is I think an undersold quality about Overnight Sensation, like the opening riff to Camarillo Brillo.
Excellent song. Love that track.
It's just so hooky. The whole album, that song, I love it. Yeah,
fantastic. Completely agree. And the last thing I'll shout out is just last night, because the internet and sort of one half of the world essentially were losing their minds with the release of Taylor Swift's Taylor's version of Red. I decided that because I want to, and I think we are still planning on talking about the Taylor's version of Red very soon. So I wanted to off the back of finishing my Limp Bizkit wave, I'm like, I can do anything. I can handle anything. So I'm like, I'm going to listen to the first 4 Taylor Swift records. I only got through the first 2 last night. Her self-titled, which is quite fine, pretty mediocre. I would say it's like definitely better than some of the most sort of stolid, country pop that I've heard. Like you can tell there's sort of seeds of a good songwriter there on it. But a lot of it is just very kind of like middling. But then I listened to Fearless. I listened specifically to the Taylor's version of Fearless, which I've heard is, basically sounds identical to the original anyway. But it's obviously produced by Aaron Dessner. It has a lot more kind of lushness in just the production without sort of changing the songs too much. And To my great fucking surprise, I really liked this album, like quite a bit. I mean, I need to revisit. Good. I need to revisit Red, and I still haven't done that yet. But there's a possibility that this Fearless could end up being my favorite Taylor Swift record, which would surprise me. But I mean, and even like songs that I kind of just discarded as really tacky and annoying and cheap as a kid, like, you know, Love Story and You Belong With Me. I don't know what it is, but for some reason they just hit in a different way when you listen to it in the context of this record. Like they're just, I realize like how just strong they are as sort of country pop songs and their construction, and how good Taylor is at crafting really, really strong hooks on this record. Like it really just took me by surprise, like how much I enjoyed this thing from front to back. Yeah, there's some songs that are kind of a little bit not as good, but there's nothing that really stands out as a low light at all. Like it's all very solid, all between like a 7 and a 9 range. I particularly loved the opening trio, like of Fearless, 15, and Love Story. Like particularly Fearless, the title track is just a really, really strong song. I think one of my favorite songs from her I've heard. And 15 is quite a heartfelt song about obviously being a teenager and the, you know, emotional experiences of that time. And she writes really tenderly and quite sensitively. And yeah, she sometimes has these kind of cliched tendencies that she sometimes leans into. I think weirdly enough, she does that less here than she does on a record like Folklore, which we've reviewed. And so I was surprised with how much I really enjoyed it. And the back half as well has some songs that I think hit surprisingly hard, like You're Not Sorry and Forever and Always. I think Forever and Always is my favorite song on the record. Really,
that's my favorite Taylor song, probably.
Oh yeah, really great pick. Like I just was not expecting these deep cuts to hit as hard as they do as well. And then you have a track like The Best Day, which is a really kind of tender ode to Taylor's relationship with her father. And it's just a lot of really, really beautiful and compact and elegantly written and produced pop music, pop country, I should say, because it's definitely like probably more country than pop. It's just country with the sensibilities of and the hookiness of pop music. So yeah, it's really strong. I'm going to listen to Speak Now later and then Red and try and figure out where I sit on those as well. But yeah, I think probably the biggest and most pleasant surprise of my week was just last night how much I really enjoyed listening to the new and updated version of that album. So yeah, Swifties may have made 1 or 2 points potentially. We'll see.
Benefits from her being like, I think especially songs like 15 and stuff really benefit from the fact that she's using her older, more like seasoned vocal performances on there that add something to the songs that wasn't there before, I think.
Totally. Like the thing is with Taylor's version, and again, I haven't listened to the original Fearless, and I should probably do that to really compare, but the thing I'd noticed just comparing the Taylor's version of Fearless to like the self-titled is just how much more she's developed as a vocal performer, like how much more sort of like, and it's a subtle thing, it's not a really, really stark thing, but she just has a kind of earthiness and a kind of a bit more range and dynamic sort of range in her tone, so that she's able to give like the lines and her vocal deliveries a little more weight, and she's able to hit sort of really hard notes with a bit more sort of oomph and strength. And so I think that's one of the big things that's so exciting about her re-recording these records. Also very, very kind of insubstantial detail, but it's also good to see that with these re-recordings she's also updating the cover art, because the cover art for her early records is really fucking bad, and the new cover art for both Fearless and Red is much better. So I'm a big fan of the cover art improvements. Anyway,
they're the most like 2000s.
Oh, they're just like
ever.
The cover of Fearless,
the Speak Now cover.
Oh god, the Speak Now.
Oh boy,
it's just terrible.
Yeah.
Well, that's basically all I have to shout out. Connor, have you been listening to anything recently that you want to shout out?
So I actually started off the week. I went to a concert, and it was legendary metalcore band Every Time I Die, which you guys have recently covered. And
pretty good group. Pretty good.
Yeah, pretty good. Yeah. But for the first time, I had never listened to Low Teens all the way through. But the night before the concert, I was like, oh, let's put this on. Like, it seems to be a favorite. And Yeah. This is probably, as it stands, this is probably my second favorite. I'm really partial to From Parts Unknown because that album just goes 1000% all the way through. Below Teens is amazing. Like, I just love the, I mean, they go incredibly hard. Keith Buckley is insane vocalist.
Yep.
I especially love the song "It Remembers" featuring Brendan Urie.
Really fucking good song.
Oh yeah, it's like catchy, powerful, with a little bit of a southern rock, southern metal twist. And that's funny because I don't particularly like Brendan Urie, or Panic at the Disco, to be honest. But he absolutely kills it on that track. Slays.
I have to mention, just because it's newsworthy, a very funny thing that happened this week is that Keith Buckley kind of had a Twitter moment, which was really funny.
He always does,
because he posted a tweet about how, like, he couldn't understand the appeal of Seinfeld, and it was just the funniest shit ever. And he was like, is it just me, or like, do empaths not enjoy Seinfeld? He was talking about how, like, he finds it really difficult to enjoy Seinfeld because, like,
wait, that was him?
Yeah.
Fuck.
And everyone was like clowning him for saying, like, you know, true empaths find Seinfeld disturbing or something. And it was just the funniest fucking thing in the world.
That is funny.
Not relevant to anything
amazing.
musical, but I just it was the funniest thing to just see that become like a Twitter thing. And whatever. Anyway, continue.
Well, we know what the next record's about.
Oh no.
Anyway, so the next notable thing was, for the first time, I listened to an album. I've listened to other albums from this band, but the legendary Japanese metal band Boris. I listened to the album Amplifier Worship with the frog on the cover. I love that cover.
Boris is Here Come That Boy.
Yeah.
Jesus.
I forgot
like
about
I'm in
that.
2015 again.
I was about to say.
Yeah, I mean, shit, we've mentioned the N-word this episode. This is 2015.
Oh yeah, that's a word exclusive to 2015. Really lost all relevance afterwards.
Yeah, really.
I don't want to be an asshole, but I'm pretty sure that Boy was his 2016 meme.
Shut the fuck up.
Yeah,
Shut up.
At least it wasn't a 2017 meme. Then Jerry Seinfeld would have liked it.
That does not function as a joke. That makes
it does
no
now,
sense.
bitch.
Made me laugh. Oh, that's good.
Anyway,
That's good.
Amplifier Worship.
Anyway,
fantastic.
so Here Come That Boy by Boris. Here Come That Boris. Sorry. Anyway.
Oh shit, what up?
Anyway, this album is awesome. This album is incredible. I need to listen to it more. But if you're familiar with Boris, they're, sludgy kind of drone metal. They change it up a lot, but this album is just, from the first track, just the lowest, the most distorted guitar you've ever heard. And the way these songs, even, like, they tend to get very repetitive and very drony, for lack of a better word, with their compositions, especially the last song on this, which is like 16 minutes of just the guitar playing really slow.
Itself.
Yeah.
What a song title.
Yeah. But like, I love the variety of vocals. There's like singing, there's shrieking on the first track. There's one track, I'm trying to remember it's the fourth track. I'm not going to try to pronounce it because I'll mess it up.
Mizu.
There you go. That track that's got to be one of the best songs I've ever heard from Boris. It just has these incredible, like, clean passages that are almost psychedelic too. and just the way it builds, it's a badass record. I need to listen to it more. So yeah, I'm moving on from that.
Before you move on, just something I only just noticed, somehow never noticed this before, is that the frog on the Amplifier Worship cover has a fucking rack. Like I only just noticed that looking on the rim page. I was like, in my memory it was just a frog here, but now it's actually got some titties. So yeah.
Tyler, are you simping for the Boris frog right now?
I'm not simping for the Boris frog right now. I'll say that. Anyway, fair. As you were saying,
the next two things I want to mention are both from this year, and I listened to them both last night. First is actually an EP, and it's from the metalcore band Knocked Loose, who
Louisville boys.
I'm not really.
Really?
Mm-hmm.
I'll be damned.
What was that?
They're from Louisville, Kentucky.
Oh, for real? That's awesome.
Apparently. Goddamn.
But I'm not really. I've seen the album cover laugh tracks like a lot. Like people love that record, but I've yet to hear it. But this EP, I was like shocked to learn that it's the second highest rated EP of this year, like overall on Rate Your Music.
Oh yeah.
And I read about it, and it's actually a concept EP.
Wow.
It's really, really dark. Like it's like 21 minutes or something, and the lyrics are about. It was just one listen, so I didn't get all the details, but it's basically about like someone who's lost their partner in a car crash that they were both involved in, and just like dealing with the aftermath and basically being driven to insanity. And holy shit, this is easily the heaviest thing I've heard all year, probably. Like it's
damn.
They're sometimes referred, they're a metalcore band, but I've also seen the genre tag of beat down hardcore. So it's like basically the entire
listening.
That's my kink.
It's like the amount of breakdowns that are on this album, like half of each song is basically a big breakdown. And normally I don't like cliche metalcore breakdowns that are just like dun 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 dun, because it's just it can get cliche, but the way they do it on this album, just you feel your whole body shaking. It's so, guitars are just so loud, the bass is so distorted, the drums are pounding, the vocals are wild. They're like a combination of, I would say, like Code Orange and Converge style, where it's like high shrieking, but you can still understand what he's saying. It's just it's just wild. And the lyrics are very dark and depressing. And there's actually an animated film for this whole EP, and I need to check that out. They released that to coincide with this and coincide with the story. But yeah, it's just, if you want to just be absolutely obliterated, listen to, I didn't even say the name. It's called A Tear in the Fabric of Life by Knocked Loose. Yeah,
I'm definitely checking
awesome.
This out.
And the last thing I'll mention is one of the most anticipated albums of the year for pretty much a ton of people, Silk Sonic, which is, of course.
Oh, yeah. We're covering that.
Yeah. Oh, nice.
Next week.
Of course, that is Bruno Mars, Anderson .Paak coming together, and collaborating on 9 tracks. And the singles, all 3 of the singles that they released beforehand were perfect, in my opinion.
Yes, agree.
Absolutely. Leave the Door Open is probably the best, like, number 1 hit song of the past, maybe ever, honestly.
Really? That went number 1?
Like, yeah.
Oh, yeah. It was
big.
Massive.
Oh, good.
Yeah.
Awesome.
It has, like, on Spotify alone, it has like 600 million plays or something like that. But yeah, and Skate, perfect. smoking out the window, hilarious and amazing. This album delivers. That's all. Of course, it just came out yesterday, so I haven't had a lot of time to sit with it, but it's so just immediately enjoyable. It's incredibly fun. There are tracks that are more in the style of Anderson .Paak's music. There are tracks that are more in the style of Bruno Mars, but they just complement each other just flawlessly. It's really just an amazing like throwback to like, you know, old school like Philly soul and funk music. And this makes me a little guilty that I have not checked out very many soul albums, even like the big classics like What's Going On and Songs in the Key of Life, which I want to get to as soon as I can because I know how highly regarded those are. But yeah, it's honestly like it's at this moment, it's one of my favorite albums of the year, hands down. 30 minutes, I'll killer, no filler. And
nothing makes me happier than seeing 9 songs, 31 minutes.
Yeah. Every
stuff.
track. Yeah, every track is fantastic. There's not a miss. No chance for a miss. Yeah, that's it for me.
Sick. Well, then without further ado, let's get into the first of our 2 reviews for today, which is Mastodon are an Atlanta, Georgia-based metal band, I believe. I mean, in terms of how you want to describe them genre-wise, heavy metal, progressive metal, alt metal, sludge metal, stoner metal, lots of labels have been lobbed at them. And I think the beautiful thing about Mastodon throughout their career is that while they've maintained a singular and relatively consistent aesthetic, they have, you know, explored different avenues for expressing that in terms of song construction. They have made fully fucking prog opus records like my personal favorite, Crack the Sky. They have made records with more immediate, punchy, hard-hitting sort of, but also melodic songs like The Hunter, like Once More Around the Sun that have been mentioned in our opening segment. And weirdly, I think with this new record, I'm just going to say a few words and then I'll step back. But with this new record, it weirdly feels like Mastodon have fused elements of every stylistic digression they've ever explored before. And they have kind of unified the different directions that their discography have gone in this really quite bewildering and stunning and frequently breathtaking way. They have returned by and large to the longer song lengths and more sort of like intricately constructed compositions of some of those 2000s records, but they're layered with the frenetic, colorful soloing and melodic work of, you know, their entire discography. But it also, as the title and album cover would suggest, quite a morose and dark album too. There's a lot to unpack with what Mastodon are doing here and how it sits in the context of their discography, how it compares to their other records. And yeah, and I suppose it'll be interesting to see for all of us where it sits in the final ranking.
I feel like a necessary piece of context going into this album is also that I believe the album is actually dedicated to their deceased former manager.
That's right.
Who they also dedicated a cover of Led Zeppelin's Stairway to Heaven to at the request of his wife, which, by the way, is fucking amazing. But yeah, that's sort of a, like, there's sort of a tone of like mourning on this album that I feel like that definitely informs.
Absolutely. That's a really good, important piece of context. Morgan, you're pretty big on this band and you seldom sort of kick off our discussions, but I think it might be fitting for you to jump in here and talk about, you know, your thoughts on Mastodon, because I know you've been revisiting their discography this week and spending some time with this record too, and I'd love to hear how you think it compares and what you think it means for Mastodon at this point in their career.
My thoughts on Huston Grimm are actually not going to be all that in depth. or analytical, because I've only been listening to this for the past week, and it's an hour and a half of dense ass progressive metal. What I can say is that in my opinion, it is the best metal album of the year, and their best work since Crack the Sky. Probably my second favorite of theirs overall, with room to grow, frankly, because this thing is so fat with a PH. It definitely does feel like a synthesis of everything the band has done before, but it feels, in a very literal sense, like their most progressive album. From the fancy time signatures to the fucking ridiculous ass guitar soloing, but to me it feels the most progressive in the sense that this is the first time in quite a while that it felt like the band hasn't just been iterating on their own formula in a way. It's definitely a Mastodon record, and it sounds like the ones before it in many ways, but it also feels like the most forward thinking, I guess, and the most, while also being sort of the most inward and reflective, I think, of where these people are in their lives right now.
Mm-hmm.
Because all 86 minutes of this is cloaked in the collective grief of the world for the past 2 years now. It feels it in pretty much every minute of its runtime, while also being energizing and urgent and outright powerful in so many places. I'm not astounded that it's fucking great. I'm astounded that it is this good more than 20 years into this band's career. And at this point, I just have complete faith that they will forever be morphing and changing and adapting and innovating in their own almost genre that they've created in of themselves. Because, there's obviously progressive metal and sludge metal, and Mastodon just kind of, if you want to dumb it down, that's basically just but no band really sounds like them. And if a band does sound like them, you immediately go, oh, that's Mastodon. That sounds like that they're just doing a Mastodon thing. It's like whenever a band starts to take heavy influence from Tool, you're just like, oh, okay, that's what that is. But yeah, I just have the utmost faith in this band at this point, and I look forward to listening to this 800 more times.
One thing that really struck me listening to it this week is like, this is an album called Hushed and Grim, which is like a very sort of like morose and dark title, and suggests something quite mournful and reflective, which I think in some of the vocal performances and some of the tonality of the top subject matter on this record you do get. But like, for an 86-minute Mastodon record, it's remarkably consistently loud. Like, yeah, there are passages where you have occasionally, very occasionally, you might get an acoustic guitar, or you might get something a little less smashing your face in. But I mean, the vast majority of this record is Mastodon really kicking the fucking door down, and not, there's not a huge amount of dynamic variation in their compositions, which is not a critique from me in this instance, because it feels like it has this urgency to it from start to finish that, I mean, and I like their 2010s records, and I did really enjoy them, and they have some really great standout tracks on them, but none of those three records had that feeling of urgency, to me at least, anyway, to my tastes, that this has, and that this maintains for as long as it does. And I think it's doubly impressive as well that they do this, and they do it in the context of songs that are 9 times out of 10 reaching beyond 6 minutes, sometimes up to 8 minutes, and never flagging, at least as I see it anyway, never really flagging within that. They find ways to maintain this loudness, this heft, this real sense of like emotional gravitas and just pull you through it as their songs are kind of reaching outward. Some of the best riffs of Mastodon's entire career, I think, are on this record. I absolutely fucking adore the track More Than I Could Chew, which has this just incredible fucking weight to it, this incredible sort of cycling riffage and these passages, and it's just a real sense of vibrant, violent urgency to it. I love as well the opener, Pain with an Anchor, which is one of my favorite songs on this record by far. I love the way that it comes in. I love the way that it surges. I listen to this with just about any record that we review, but particularly with metal records, a true litmus test. Like, it has to pass two litmus tests for me. It has to sound good on headphones, and it has to sound good in the car. And so last night I did a car test with this, and I mean, it just absolutely delivers, and it sounds immaculate. Like, I'll also say as well that I think this is the best produced Mastodon record, which is not to say that they have records that are less well produced, although I do think that I had some issues with the production on their last album. But for me, like, there's such a crispness and a weight and like an atmospheric tonality and just a real kind of impactful slickness to this that isn't too sharp or shiny or anything either, but just really allows you to, like, with the bass drums, you feel them fucking beating in your chest. Like, you just feel everything with such a great depth that is obviously the result of a band that are so experienced and have tinkered so much with perfecting the way their records sound so much year after year. And yeah, this is, I think, the best they've ever sounded from a production standpoint. And you also have songs that explore, their sound and things they can do in interesting ways. Like, my favorite track on the record is Tear Drinker, which has this absolutely staggering bass solo from Troy Sanders that is just such an unexpected appearance when it happens, and the texture of it is so, like, exciting and just gorgeously colorful for a Mastodon track, and the hooks and the vocal melodies are better than ever. I believe this was one of the singles for the record, and I couldn't pick a better single choice, to be honest. It's just a great encapsulation of everything this record does well. If you're curious about Mastodon and this album, but you don't want to commit to listening to a 90-minute record, I would strongly recommend putting the song Tear Drinker on as a taster. And if you like that track, you'll like the rest of the record. I think it really encapsulates a lot of what the album does really, really well. I will say, I think that broadly the first half of the record is a little bit stronger on the whole than the second half of the record, but I don't think there's a significant drop off at all. I think the only track that I'm kind of middling on is the song Dagger, which I think is a little bit too kind of dirgy and from my tastes, but I still think that it's decent. There are moments on the record where I become acutely aware of the limits of my enjoyment of Troy Sanders' voice in particular, which I've come to really, really love. But there are points where he has this kind of raspy tonality that, on Skeleton of Splendor, for instance, where he's like, to my detriment, like 17 times. I really like that song. I think it has some great soloing and it has some beautiful, like, guitar kinetics within it. But also, I was like, there is only so many times I can hear it.
I love how this week you come out with this complaint, and yet last week when we talked about listening to Crack the Sky, you were just like, this is like if you listened to Blackwater Park and said you didn't like the growls, and this is exactly what I was fucking talking about.
Well, it's crazy because you're both wrong.
I don't know what to say. It's not something I've ever really noticed on Crack the Sky as much, but I think the vocals here might be mixed a little bit higher. I'm not sure what it is, but or maybe it was that you saying that made me more primed to pick up on it. But anyway, it's not even a complaint. It's just something like, I slightly enjoy the other vocalist a little bit more, but he still, like, delivers. And he does, to his credit, have some really kind of moving vocal performances on here as well. Like, he does sound great and emotive on Skeleton of Splendor. He has a great solo vocal turn on the song Had It All as well, which features Kim Thale as well, which is a noteworthy guest appearance. And I think that he and Brand Daler in particular, swapping vocal duties really kind of soar at certain points on this record, like another one of my favorites, the closing track Gigantium, which is just an absolutely epic end to this record. Like Mastodon always know how to end their albums with a bang without exception, and they really do that here. And yeah, I mean, I don't have a heck of a lot to say about this record, to be honest, beyond that. I thoroughly enjoy it from front to back. I've enjoyed it more each time that I've listened to it. For a band that I've always like really liked, but never like fully loved outside of a couple of records, I'm more surprised than anyone that I actually do love this 86-minute record as much as I do. Like, it's just very satisfying and very easy to listen to from front to back for me. And it has a great sense of ebb and flow, even if, its highlights do kind of stand a little bit above some of its deeper cuts. But still, yeah, I thought this was really sensational. I really loved it.
Well, while we have a moment, I was looking into it some, and the producer of this album is
Peter Gabriel. Not the producer being Peter Gabriel, but he did stuff for Peter Gabriel.
It was not produced by Peter Gabriel, no. But
no.
It's a guy named David Bottrell. I would kill the four of you to hear Mastodon cover Sledgehammer.
Oh yeah, this dude.
Yeah, I'd let you kill me.
This dude has some fucking credits.
Uh-huh.
Yeah, just he has credits on Peter Gabriel's So Passion, Us, two David Sylvian and Robert Fripp albums, King Crimson's Room and Thrack, Tool's Anima, Tool's Lateralis, Dream Theater's Metropolis Part 2, Muse's Origin of Symmetry, fucking Godsmack album. That's rough.
Coheed and Cambria's Good Apollo on Burning Star too.
Wow. Yeah, Star 4.
But, so, I mean, as well.
This man's got a resume.
Yeah, this man has produced.
Between the Buried in Me, Smashing Pumpkins, Oceana.
Yeah. So this
man,
man,
how the fuck you say that stupid ass word? Oh, yeah. He did the remix of Vapor Trails by Rush.
Oh,
so sounds good.
Hell, yeah,
yeah. And I think this is, from what I can see, I think this is the first time Mastodon have worked with him. So that could be part of the reason why, this record in particular, at least to me anyway, I really just noticed how great this sort of sounded for them. And they've never sounded bad. But I think they really needed, after Kingdom of Sand, to really bounce back with something hard hitting, and they've really done that here.
Fucking what now? Bounce back after what now?
Oh,
I love that. I love that we've circled around to talking about the producer of this album and the many credits that he has producing tons of different albums that I already knew, which might clue you into the fact that I had to do some digging with this album, because I need to lead off with the fact that I think this is a great album. However, this is the most frustrated I have been with an album in a very long time. And I have to starkly disagree with Tyler about the production. And look, I'm going to just come up and say that this is probably, like, feel free to discredit everything I have, because mathematically it's just like you list all of these production credits and talk about all of these things, and it's just like there literally just must be something wrong with me at this point. Like it doesn't make any fucking sense. But I have literally listened to this album on different streaming platforms. I have gotten the flax of this album. I have downloaded 2 different versions of it to put into Apple Music just to make sure that one of them didn't fuck up. But I just don't really like the mix on this album. Something about it, like, maybe it is that lack of dynamic range, but like from the moment I put on Pain with an Anchor and that like distant drum, those sort of come in, you're just like, yeah. And the second those guitars come in, they sound like they are way further away than they should be. This album's biggest problem to me is the fact that a lot of it feels like it lacks an impact. There's like every other album of theirs is something that I feel rattle in my skull. Like when I put on something like Blood Mountain, that opening track just absolutely fucking, it sounds like it's gonna break me. And maybe it's like just the more atmospheric thing they're going for here, which I do understand to some degree, but I feel like it suffers a little bit. Granted, I think that problem is most pronounced on Pain with an Anchor and The Crux, and I think it gets better from there. And that, shut the fuck up, Tyler. I think it gets better from there. It gets a little bit more even. It feels like it knows what it's doing a little bit more. For example, Sickle and Peace, I think, is one of my favorite songs on here. I think, like, thematically, it's a fucking amazing song. It's really getting to the heart of that sort of mournful tone that this album has. And like it, I also just love the fucking guitar work at the end. It's just fantastic. I also really love the bluesy, dirgy Cut the Beast, which really sort of like lays it on thick there at the beginning, which I really, really love stuff like that. And then there's the single Pushing the Tides, I think also is just obviously a great single choice.
The most
Had It All
Remission,
Can Fail.
The most Remission ass Mastodon song since Remission.
Fucking exact. I mean, it sounds like it just sounds like Crusher Destroyer in places. And also the song Gobblers of Dregs, I think, which, first of all, title Gobblers, okay, but the song whips, so I don't give a fuck. But the thing is that I fully accepted. I was just like, maybe this is me, maybe this is like, maybe my internet's fucking up, but I've listened to it in multiple places, in multiple contexts. I've listened to it in my car, I've listened to it on here, I've listened to it on Spotify, I've listened to it on Apple Music. And I have the same problem every single time. The best way I can interact with it is when I put the Flax on my laptop and I listen to it with my best pair of headphones. And even still, it's like, it makes it better. That's the ideal place to listen to it. But if I have to go out of my way to listen to this to mostly get over my problems with it, I won't lie, that is a big hindrance for me. The fact that there is something different, like, I'm unsure of myself, but only in the fact that it's just like, I read that, oh, they did change producer to this other guy who's, hasn't worked with them before. And that's like the only thing in my favor that in my head, I'm just like, oh, okay, well, maybe that's why. But then it's like, oh, he's mixed all these other things that sound great. And it's just like, so what the fuck is up with this? It's just like especially stuff on Pain with an Anchor, which is a song that, like, the core of which I love. Mainly that's like, that's the problem here, is that I compared this to sort of Baroness's Golden Gray earlier this week, in the sense that it's just like all of the fundamentals of this album are fucking, don't give me that fucking face, Tyler, that all the fundamentals here are fucking great. Everything works. Everything is some of the best stuff the band's ever played with, but it's the sound that it's all caked in that just holds it back a little bit for me. And again, it's not to the degree that Golden Gray holds itself back. I can actually listen to this album without getting a fucking headache, but there's just like, maybe it's the fact that, like, the mid-tones here just don't really sound like they're there. That dynamic range just kind of, it's not like, and maybe it's just me being too used to the other Mastodon albums, because I think that no matter where you come down on the production of this album, the fact that it is different in a very stark way than the other Mastodon albums, that's kind of undeniable. But it just makes it so fucking difficult to enjoy this when I really feel like it just lacks a certain impact that I do settle into its groove. It does feel like, once I sort of get onto that, like, third track forward, but it's still something that I can't deny would just make the album better for me if it sounded something more like Blood Mountain or Once More, or just something else. It's just so frustrating, because I really do think the album is great. Like, honestly, it's fantastic. Like, I've sat through this album like 12 times this week, and it's 90 minutes long. So that should give you an indicator to how frustrated I am with it.
Must be some cilantro gene thing going on here.
See, that's what I was worried about. It's just like, I'm gonna come up here and I'm gonna sound fucking insane to everybody.
So I too have the actual cilantro gene, and to piggyback a little bit off Jake, I actually have a similar issue with this album. That said, so you're not alone, but I do like this album a lot. So I'll get that out of the way. Like, I think this is a great album. I think it's, and also I should preface by saying I've only gotten the chance to listen to this once all the way through. So take my opinion with a grain of salt. But yeah, I think, like, again, the songs individually, like this as a whole, come together great for an album. It's a great listening experience. The songs on their own are fantastic. You know, I really love songs like The Crux. That's a big highlight for me. I love, like, the background screaming that they add in on that track. I also love, and this is a thing that Mastodon does very often, is there's like this really heavy riff in this song, almost, I don't want to say like a metalcore riff, but something like really, really low and you can throw down to. But then they play the same riff and change the key, and they play it like in a higher key, and it creates this like more psychedelic passage. And they've done that a lot throughout their career, and it's always badass whenever they do it. I just love the way that they play with like different like whatever you want to call it, keys, scale types, or whatever. I also want to shout out the song Sickle in Peace. I think that song is awesome. I love like the more like atmospheric, like staccato guitars at the beginning that lead it off. It's not quite like anything they've done before. Not that I can think of that at least sounds like this. And then I also like a song like The Beast, which is one of their most bluesy songs that they've ever made. I especially love the guitar intro. And I think it was, I read somewhere that it was, I don't have it pulled up, but I think it was like Marcus King or something like that, who's like a blues guitarist who did the beginning of this. And it has these really unique, it has these really unique like bends that sound weird, but just add so much to that beginning part. Tear Drinker, absolute banger, obviously. Already mentioned it. I noticed that the kick on this song in particular is so loud. Like you just feel it in your chest just every time it hits. And we already mentioned, but Pushing the Tides is probably my favorite song on this album. It just goes so hard. It's destructive. The chorus is great. I love it. Then there's also a lot of like the more like they've always had kind of this psychedelic approach to their compositions, and a song like Dagger, for example, that has that, and I don't know how to pronounce this, to be honest, but it's like sarangi or something like that. But it's like I think it's kind of like an Indian violin. If I could be wrong about that, but there's like a solo of that. Like if you listen back and you hear that unique violin, it's the same thing I think that's used in the Tool song Reflection, if you know that song. Yeah, so it has this very cool, like almost sitar but violin type sound. So I think there's a lot of really great experimentation throughout this album. Also, I'll say that it's a 90-minute album, and it does feel long, but not that long. Like there's never really a point where I'm like, okay, get on with it. We got it. We got the point. I thoroughly enjoyed every song on here. But like Jake said, my issues that I have with this album kind of pertain to the album as a whole rather than the individual songs. I think the album is mixed well for the most part. Maybe it's mastered weird. I'm not sure, but it's very like bass and treble heavy. That and like Jake said, that it seems like a lot of the mids are kind of carved out, maybe to make room for the vocals or the drums or whatever.
That's what it sounds like to me. I'm not an expert, but that's what I've read. A lot of people who also have problems with the production have said as well. So I'm guessing that's it. Yeah,
and I also will say that going through their discography, I do think that the production overall is better than the last album, Emperor's Sand. That album, I expressed my issues like in the chat, and I said like the guitar solos on that album are like almost comically loud. Like they just it's almost like a jump scare when they come in.
Yeah.
And it seems like again, it seems like they kind of carve out a lot of the meat of the guitars to where it just doesn't hold as much weight as it does on like the first 4 albums. And
yeah,
I think the issue is probably just me, really, because I feel like I'm really biased towards their earlier work, because I mean, Crack the Sky would be on like my Mount Rushmore of metal. I love that album so much, and Blood Mountain is amazing. Leviathan, all that stuff. But I just kind of wish that the guitars overall had a bit more, again, I use the word meat, just a bit more sludginess, if you will. And I think the vocals too are kind of placed in the mix a little strangely. They seem to be there seems to be a lot of like high end that is kind of piercing, not to the point where it's annoying, but to the point where it sounds kind of weird on their voices specifically to do this. It's almost like a pop record.
I noticed that just in the way that Troy Sanders' voice sounded mix wise on certain tracks, like everything would sound really, really, really crisp and perfect. And then his voice would come in, and it was not an issue with his voice. It's just the fact that sometimes it would sound like it was kind of scratching against the mix in a certain way. Like I noticed this in the car in particular, and I had to like turn it down just a little bit when he was singing at certain points. And yeah, so I think I could probably get on board with that. And again, I'm not coming after Troy. It's just little details that if I'm to be finicky, I would single out.
Yeah, and I think the vocal performances overall are good. On the honestly, performances all over the board are spectacular.
Oh yeah,
I have nothing against like the performances. It's just kind of the placement of everything just feels a little bit off to me.
I wish it just went a little further in either direction of like, I wish it was either a lot more sharp and clean or a lot harsher and sludgier, because I felt as it stood for me, it didn't push either kind of sound far enough for me to really latch onto it in terms of what I got out of the production. And I guess that aside, I'll give some comments on some things I really like. I really like a lot of the riffs that feel more disorienting and psychedelic leaning. That's what really sticks out to me. Drumming, I really love, and I think the whole modus operandi of this album, this string of hooky, fun riffs is really what carries it. I like lead-ins to tracks like The Beast and some of the synth kind of fuckery on Skeleton of Splendor. I mean, Tear Drinker, huge highlight here. Love the almost analog synth sounding stuff. I thought the kind of synthy stuff was an idea I'd like to see them explore even more, because especially these really darker, dirgier kind of synth tones, I think could be a really interesting blend with their particular sound. I really loved the main riff of a track like Dagger. Savage Lands is really blood pumping. And those are some tracks I think in general, a kind of spattering of them I found particularly noteworthy. My kind of thesis statement in terms of my opinion on this album is that I generally enjoyed it, but it didn't go far enough for me in places. Like I generally like the songs on here, but there's only like 1 or 2 songs where I really properly love them. And on that same token, there aren't a ton I properly dislike even. It's just kind of this middle ground of consistently well done, but also not exceptionally well done, where I find it, just a good record, but because of that runtime, it doesn't feel like something I'm going to return to a lot, because I could get those highs from other progressive metal records, other sludge metal records, or even other Mastodon records, likely ones I have yet to even hear.
Honestly, considering this podcast is allergic to longer run times, typically speaking, the fact that we all generally enjoyed this album is a testament to its quality, if nothing else.
100%, absolutely. Yeah, look, and I'll re-emphasize that I think that it's a really fucking fun listen from front to back and not difficult at all. And I haven't really figured it out. I need to revisit certain records, but I think this would pretty confidently be probably my third favorite Mastodon record at this moment, which is just fucking awesome, to be honest. That I'm so thrilled I love this as much as I did, because I was approaching this with a considerable level of trepidation, and I don't know, I think it's a lot of fun. We've harped on certain details for the sake of really kind of like, you know, giving it a fair review, but yeah, at the end of the day, it's a fucking blast to listen to.
Oh, yeah.
So
I think our scores at the end are definitely going to be more reflective of our overall opinion on this.
Yeah, 100%.
It is only fair to be completely objective.
True that. All right. Well,
tell it like it is.
Tell it like it is. Let's move into our favorite tracks and ratings. Jake, why don't you go first?
My three favorite tracks are going to be Tear Drinker, Gigantium, and Sickle and Peace. Least favorite is probably the one where the production impacts my enjoyment the most, that being the opener, probably, which is a great song that I just feel like would be much greater if it didn't sound the way it did. And I give the album a 7.5, definitely in the lesser half of my Mastodon ranking, but the fact that a 7.5 is in the lesser half is pretty good.
My three favorite tracks here are gonna have to be Tear Drinker, Skeleton of Splendor, and Dagger. Least favorite, I guess hard to pick, but if I had to go with something, I might say like fucking
you don't have to pick one.
No, I'm trying to think of, I can't remember the name of the song, but it's the one we've mocked.
Chinese Satellite.
No, what is it called?
It's called
I really can't.
Splendor.
Is
That's
it?
the one that we were clowning on. Yeah.
Oh, that's fun. Okay, well, Skeleton of Splendor is also going on my least favorites list. 7 out of 10.
Oh well.
Fuck you, I can do what I want on this show.
Morgan just
when you said Chinese Satellite, I like pointed to my picture because it's sort of like Phoebe Bridgers, and then you said Skeletons of Splendor. I was like, I was right.
Still works.
Here we go.
Still works.
Yeah.
Best album of the year.
Limp Bizkit still works. Morgan, your rating of the favorite tracks.
Ouch.
My favorite tracks are Sickle and Peace, Skeleton of Splendor. I also say Pushing the Tides. Least favorite, Chinese Satellite, 10 out of 10.
Hell yeah.
Ooh, nice.
My three favorite tracks are Pain with an Anchor, More Than I Could Chew, and Tear Drinker. My least favorite is Dagger, and I give the album an 8 out of 10. And Connor.
My three favorites are Pushing the Tides, Sickle and Peace, and Tear Drinker. My least favorite is actually Eyes of Serpents, just because I wasn't huge on the, if I don't remember very well, because again, one time, but the backing vocals near the end of that song. And I will give this a 7.5.
All right, that gives us an average rating of 8.0. Let us know what you think of the new Mastodon record. How do you think it stacks up to the other records in their discog? Where do you fall on our conversation about production and the length of the record? Let us know all of your different thoughts on Mastodon in the comments below. We want to hear from you.
Truly the pallbearer's forgotten days of 2021.
Now let's move into our second review of the day, which is, of course, so Limp Bizkit are a band who need no introduction, really. I talked about them earlier in our What We've Been Listening To segment, where I discussed about how I have spent the last 7 days listening to their entire discography. So if you want to hear my thoughts on their other albums, you can go and check that out earlier in this video. But all of it builds up to this new record, which is their first record in 10 years, since 2011's Gold Cobra. And worth saying from the outset as well, a record that is a torrid and troubled, plagued development. I think much as Gold Cobra itself did, although this was to much more of a troubled extent. I believe this was a record where they had signed to a new label and began kind of planning it in 2012, like very shortly after Gold Cobra came out. It was originally planned to have the title Stampede of the Disco Elephants, Stampede of the Disco Elephants. They released a couple of singles, including the song Ready to Go with Lil Wayne, which is worth listening to, and despite being a Limp Bizkit featuring Lil Wayne song, is better than half of this album. They even covered fucking Ministry as well. That was going to be on that album, I think, too. So they released
that just sounds abhorrent.
They released a string of songs throughout 2013 and 2014, as this album was continuously delayed again and again and again. And I think because they had signed to Cash Money, and then I think they left that label, and essentially the album kind of stalled from there. I think Wes Borland said that it was Fred's fault, that Wes had written all his guitar parts and Fred wasn't wanting to finish the album. And then Fred apparently claimed in 2017 that the album had been available for over a year on Soulseek, and then Wes Borland said, "You're actually full of shit. That's not true at all." So a lot of really strange shit happened, and ultimately all 4 of those pre-release songs between 2012 and 2014, none of them made it onto this actual final version of the album, which I'm not even sure when this was recorded, whether this was sort of cobbled together or whether it does represent, the fruits of that period of development. It seems to, but also at the same time, there is, I don't know, there's a certain aspect to this record, whether it's been production or whether it's in some of the things that Fred says and does, that does feel very kind of new, like them trying to make a Limp Bizkit in 2021 record. It has shades of kind of disastrous comeback records like Black Flag's What The. It reminded me of it.
I'm sorry, I just got I pictured the Microphones in 2020 record cover in my head when you said Limp Bizkit in 2021. Like there was any fucking correlation.
That's what this podcast does to our brains. So yeah, that's basically the story of this album's fraught development. And the funniest aspect of this whole story to me is the fact that 4 weeks ago, Fred Durst put a poll up on his Instagram story asking whether he should release the album or just keep releasing singles, and Limp Bizkit fans overwhelmingly voted for the album, and so they released the album, which was just it's just hilarious to me that they seem to care so little, give so absolutely 0% of a shit, that it was just you want it or not, fine, there you go. It's just here, have it, and very much that kind of laissez-faire, what the fuck attitude is reflected in this record, which sounds and is constructed sloppily, even for Limp Bizkit. Like if we're just talking about the standard of Limp Bizkit, not the standard of albums in general, this is sloppy. Like this is a sloppy record, and yet it probably would still fall in the upper half of their discography ranking for me, which tells you, I guess, something about how I feel about Limp Bizkit, but also something about how I think Limp Bizkit feel about album construction, which I think is very fucking little. They are, if there's one thing that it's clear this band doesn't give a shit about, it's actually piecing an album together. And look, I know I'm not being very charitable, but
I think it says a lot about you that you have a Limp Bizkit ranking.
Look, I listen to every fucking album, so I have to do something with that information that I now have, that experiences that I've now had. And yeah. But yeah, look, I want to throw over to Connor, our guest for the episode, because Connor, I know, has been, a Limp Bizkit listener for some time and has some experience with the band and probably some insights into how this record holds up as well. So I think it's only fair that we throw over to our guest first on this one. Connor, how do you find this record compares to their other stuff, and what do you feel about it?
First, the way you said I've been a Limp Bizkit listener makes me sound like I'm a fan.
The average Limp Bizkit enjoyer.
Well, which I clearly am, as you can see. I donned the cap for this, as did Morgan. Thought I should get in the mindset. So yeah. Limp Bizkit is a band that
are they?
Let me stop you.
Are they? Are they a band? Yeah. Wait a second. Hold up. No. So they're
an entity.
They are a conglomerate.
Emerged from the primordial soup.
Limp Bizkit is a cultural phenomenon.
We are all Limp Bizkit.
Reset.
Play Phenomenon by Toby Mac.
We rock forever. No, never. I'm not gonna do that again.
We rock forever. We stop whenever.
Just John Lennon covering Toby Mac. Anyway, so I've always had the opinion that Limp Bizkit is a genuinely, and I mean this, talented group of musicians. Yeah. And there's always been one main issue, one clear issue with Limp Bizkit. Morgan just said it. It's Mr. Fred Durst himself. So yeah, all the albums that I've heard I thought were pretty terrible, especially ones like Results May Vary and Hot Dog Flavored Water. But so when this album was released, what I noticed was at first there seemed to actually be a lot of like positive like ratings on like Rate Your Music and even Sputnik. Like they were actually like very positive scores. I'm like, is this like a good album? Did they like just step it up? Like, because I remember, on Instagram when Fred Durst like was posting a bunch of selfies with his new hair and shades. just that I don't even know what hairstyle, but like just unrecognizable. I saw that picture. I'm like, no, that's not him. That's got to be someone else. But yeah, and so I had to go somewhere like 3 miles away to pick up my grandma with my dad. We took separate cars, so I was in a car by myself for hours. I was like, let's put on the Limp Bizkit album, see what it is. And honestly, when the album starts with what's the first song, Out of Style, that riff comes in and I was like, ooh, okay, Wes Borland, I see you. I always thought Wes Borland was actually quite talented. He always has like weird, like heavy riffs that combine with like whammy bar pitch dives that I always thought sounded really cool. And then who comes in and does his thing.
When's it gonna change?
Oh yeah. And I'll be perfectly honest. I like this song. I think it's stupid. Like the lyrics are bad, but
no, yeah,
it's probably
probably the best song here.
Yeah, like it's what you're getting with Limp Bizkit at this point. You're getting like heavy riffs, stupid lyrics, and
my style is kind of fresh.
Yeah, and
the way he says fresh makes me want to fucking kill myself.
Look, I couldn't help but think of the first song on the new JPEG Mafia album when I heard.
Oh my god!
I still haven't heard that.
I'm looking good. I'm feeling nice. Just imagining that in Fred Durst's voice, like fuck me.
It would. I've done it.
What's funny is his voice on the first song, at least, doesn't annoy me as much, because what I hate most about Fred Durst's voice, just his voice, is the yelping. Like you listen to something like, take for instance Rage Against the Machine. Rage Against the Machine stylistically is not actually terribly different from Limp Bizkit. Please don't kill me for saying that. Only in the fact that it's rap rock, rap.
It's fine.
Yeah, it's rap rock, rap metal. But you hear Zach De La Rocca, or you hear his voice, and he just has so much grit, so much bite. And then Fred Durst is like, so many fucked up things. And it's just
he's singing from like the back of his skull. I don't know how that's possible, and yet he does it.
He sounds like someone is pushing his gut, like as he's delivering every line, like just pushing really hard, like.
Who's that musician there's that meme going around of the guy who sings like he's being chased with a garden hose? Oh, it's Isaac Brock from Modest Mouse.
Yeah, that's that. Yeah, he makes it work. Yeah, like I think the thing with Fred is like you have to like get into a certain kind of like brain dead mindset to really like get on, like to enjoy him. And that's not me saying like people who enjoy Limp Bizkit are stupid. It's just me saying like you have to like really shut your brain off to find the level where it's enjoyable.
You have to go into a coma and not be able to hear it.
You know what?
I might be saying you're stupid.
You know what? This isn't a backhanded compliment either, but I genuinely think Out of Style is one of the best Limp Bizkit songs. Like just full stop.
Yeah.
Like I really enjoy that track. Like it's goofy, it's silly. I find that detuned riff that you've mentioned, Connor, like that. I find that really fucking like satisfying to listen to. It's so weird sounding in a really good way.
I think that is fucking hilarious. Every single time I hear it, it's like, it's no doubt like hard in some respect when I hear that, but it's so fucking funny sounding. It sounds like he's just taking two giant metal objects and scraping them against each other.
Yeah. It's goofy as shit, and
it runs into it is what it does.
Yeah.
And it doesn't suck as a result of that, and that's
Exactly.
I guess, yeah.
The only thing I hate are the song vocals where he's like, when's he gonna shit? Like when Fred Durst tries to sing an actual normal person, I want to like break my coffee mug and then slit my throat with one of the shards. It sounds so fucking awful.
I will say, like the first time I heard this album and he comes in with the DJ Lethal, I was fully prepared for a DJ Khaled. Another one.
The best music.
And then that music.
Just down the mountain.
That just
rhymes
it. What a dream
mountain.
Just made me think about what a dream collaboration that would be. And also something I forgot to mention when I talked about the Limp Bizkit discography earlier is that I do think DJ Lethal is probably both the worst and most inessential DJ component of any band ever. Like he just does absolutely nothing for Limp Bizkit ever, and all that he ever does add is just the most annoying sounds that are just so like just not essential to the music at all. He's like such a fucking like just stupid presence on any time he turns up. Like he just comes and scratches and it's like, cool dude, whatever, man. Like you could just replace him with a garage band sound effect. Like fucking hell.
It's like the progressive metal equivalent of like throwing a glass shattering sound effect into the middle of your guitar solo.
Yeah, it's like, I mean, who even like
it was done well once. Stop.
Yeah. Anyway, moving on.
I will say I actually like the second song too, Dirty Rotten Biscuit, because again, it's dumb fun. Like that's the appeal ultimately of Limp Bizkit, is it's dumb, it's fun, it kind of goes hard. It's sometimes fun, not always, obviously. Yeah, and then and even Dad Vibes, I'm not big on it. I think the lyrics are horrible. like the specific verse where he's like, flow so cold, need ice to deliver.
His
then,
like
that I loved
the
that
similar-
verse. That killed me. That was so
it's
funny.
it is
That was
it's
so
it's
good.
funny. It's
His-
bad, but it's funny. Like the
his-
similes are the most basic fucking similes you could
Oh
ever
my
come up with.
God.
His
Hard like a
rapping
rock.
cadence on that verse is so like, it's so bad, but it's also so fucking funny. No, I genuinely like think that it's probably Dad Vibes is probably my second favorite song on this record.
I love that bar. Damn, this dad like a river, flow so cold, need ice to deliver. Ice. Where's the connection here? It's just so like.
And it sounds like something.
That
Y'all
does
ain't never
not
seen a
sense.
gorilla in the mist.
It sounds like something Vanilla Ice would say.
It does.
Honestly, that song, like, I feel like it actually does, from an artistic perspective, capture what they're going for, because
Yeah.
it does sound like it actually is, and sounds like an out of touch dad trying to rap and coming up with sick rhymes like
And
so
just, like,
damn clean he a mop.
the chorus though, like there's something about it, like it's stupid and dumb, but also like kind of catchy and just like, and there's just something about it that just like makes
Flow
me
so
smile.
cold, need ice to deliver.
Yeah.
What?
I feel like I've gone through the fucking looking glass. This is abysmal. What is wrong with you people? What is
Oh, don't worry,
happening?
Morgan. I'm
Look,
with you.
let me stress the
Yeah,
fact.
but the fag in the back of the trip. No, I'm in the bad.
Me, I'm the fag in the back.
I love how I distinctly heard him say the F slur the first time I listened to that.
Dude, me too. Like, I swear he's still like, I read the lyrics and it's supposed to be sag, but then I
Yeah.
listen to the song, I'm like, you're not, there's no S
He
there.
says
There-
fag.
there's not an S. Maybe
Yeah.
maybe it's like an old English S where it's written like an F.
I can't even like.
I imagine that was on the sheet music for this song.
The middle school S.
Anyway.
Loving,
then
I know exactly
and then
what
you
that
have
means.
and then you have so turn it up, bitch. And the next
Oh my
which is
God.
like, it's so like, I mean, yeah, it's Limp Bizkit doing Limp Bizkit. I mean, at this point in the album, yeah, it's not good, but like it's what you'd expect, and it's like, I guess, the best possible version of what you could expect. And it's so funny that you get to this point and it's doing that, because then immediately after that, the album just takes the most fucking catatonic dive.
Oh God.
And I've talked about this in my intro in what we've been listening to. Like, the worst Limp Bizkit songs, without question, are the singer-songwriter tracks. The songs where fuck Fred Durst is in his fucking feelings, where he's like the fucking
So
new metal
he
Drake.
decided to write a Simple Plan song.
He's the new metal Drake on a song like Don't Change. To me, like, that's what I hear when I hear that.
God.
And it's like, it's so like, it would have fit right in on Results May Vary. If you want a sense of what
You hear those opening guitar chords and you instantly know you are in for the worst fucking thing you've ever heard in your life. Just instantly you're like, oh, are we gonna? And then yes.
The thing is, it's actually an INXS cover. And I don't blame.
Just found out about that because I'm a genius, and I was like, wait, that's a cover. I didn't even know.
I don't blame anyone who didn't pick up on that, because I didn't pick up on it the first time I heard it either. Because, you know, like with Behind Blue Eyes, they have this transcendent ability to take really good songs. And INXS, by the way, are one of the best Australian bands ever. Like, a really, really solid 80s band that probably deserves a bit of a retrospective, and like not a full series, but like they deserve to be looked back on and reevaluated. But and Don't Change is a really good song. I went back and listened to the original after I heard this. And it's just like, they have this ability to take these songs, to not fundamentally change them in very much ways. And it's not that they turn the music terrible necessarily, although they don't do it any favors, but just the mere presence of Fred Durst expressing sentiment.
Yeah, I must object to the usage of the word they, because it's Fred Durst.
Yeah,
that is the only thing that significantly changes about these covers.
Don't change for me.
Yeah,
his voice sounds like it's like melodyne to death. Like, it has to be pitch perfect so his voice sounds completely like just void of anything human when he sings like this.
Yeah. 100%. And it's utterly unbearable. I think the album, as much as it can bounce back, it bounces back slightly with You Bring Out the Worst in Me, which I think is about as good as the tracks 2 and 3 run. I think that's kind of, it's
on that we agree.
I don't hate that song. But then like I think after that, just unequivocally from Love the Hate onwards, this album just fucking flatlines. Unequivocally, just everything after that. Like I've listened to this album 3 times. I know that's probably sounds stupid, but I listened to this album 3 times. I couldn't tell you if you put a gun to my fucking family's heads, I couldn't tell you a single thing about the song Barnacle at all. Like, I don't have any memory of it whatsoever. It's in one ear and out the other. It's gone. I mean, yeah, the whole rest of this album, like the only parts I remember are the really like extreme, like the fucking awful skits, like the fucking awful skit that opens Love the Hate with the whole fucking
the radio.
I fucking hate Limp Bizkit.
Yeah, the radio interview sketch at the end of Snacky Poo as well, which is like the most
fucking my god
unbearable.
That shit was unbelievable.
Like
I legitimately skipped. Like once that skit started, I skipped the song.
Yeah, you have
like
to.
My second.
It's unbearable. Just like
it's so bad.
Whatever the bit is, like whether Wes is in on it or not, and you really can't tell whether he is or not. He sounds genuinely fucking pissed off to be like, to be a part of it. Just although it's kind of funny though, what gets me in Snacky Poo is like whenever that kind of crazy dude, I don't know who it is, whether it's Fred or someone else in the band who's doing that, whether he kind of asks him a question about like, his favorite food or his favorite band, there's just like a fucking Grand Canyon sized pause, and then he's like, and
eventually he does the Morgan thing where he goes, yes.
Yeah. Even at the very end of the skit, he's like, "All right, have a good one." Yep. It's just like the bit
it's so unbearable.
It's a dead horse. Like you've been doing that too. Like at that point, it's just like.
And I felt like I was having a fever dream when he was like, "Godspeed, you black." When
I heard him say "Godspeed, you black emperor," I feel like I had a seizure in the middle of my fucking workplace. I was just like, does this mean that Fred Durst listens to these bands in his spare time? He listens to real music?
No, this is Wes Borland that we're talking about here.
Yeah,
he's the one being interviewed, which is still funny to think about Wes Borland listening to
the mere fact that they know these bands exist in the first place is bewildering to me.
I don't think Fred Durst listens to music.
No, I don't think so either. I think he turns up and sometimes says things with his mouth.
I think he listens to Limp Bizkit.
No, not even that. I don't think.
I think
the Hacks and Cloak.
I think also like credit you for the album ending in the funniest way possible with the song Goodbye, which is just the most like fucking non-existent fucking song on this whole record, and just like such a shrug. Like it's so
real
obvious.
Gone by Toby Mac vibes here.
Gone is a song. At least, like this is just like a shrug for ending to the record. It's just the most kind of like non-committal, like, fuck, we need a closing track. Let's just fucking, dig up a demo. And it's so like just unremarkably bland, which is hilarious because like the best thing Limp Bizkit like can do to me is like just not be bland. Like if they can make a whole album where they don't feel bland, like just bland and boring at any point, even if it's like the worst shit you've heard in the world, that will be a success. But when this album like dives off a cliff into the most bland fucking second half it could possibly have managed, that's more disappointing to me than if Limp Bizkit had straight up made a catastrophically poor taste record. Just give me something to dig into here, Fred. Like, give me something to fucking psychoanalyze. Don't give me this weak
kind of
shit.
have
Tyler,
that.
you're forgetting the incredible Maynard
the
James
incredible
Keenan does
social
pop punk of
commentary.
Pill Popper, where
God,
Fred
alright.
Durst takes a really hard stance against the pharmaceutical industry. Don't you know?
Oh yeah.
Sure he does.
Can't even remember
mean,
what that song sounds like.
What's really interesting here is that so this album's like I guess they're kind of trying to frame it as this like, oh fuck you to all the haters, and it's really funny because it's just so embarrassing. Because like this is what you turn out. Your fuck you to your haters is this unremarkable, bland, bad, uninteresting album that barely cracks the 30-minute mark. Like, look, I want Limp Bizkit to make a proper fuck you to the haters. Make a 10-hour long album that's just Fred Durst going ham over like these weird, just abstract instrumentals. This is what I want to see from Limp Bizkit. Make me your manager. We're making a
Limp Bizkit post rock album when?
Yeah. Oh, turn that shit up.
Well, I mean, like,
I want Limp Bizkit's Star Sailor.
hell yeah.
oh my god, give me my medicine.
Come here, woman. That didn't even sound like Fred Durst.
Those medicine. You can't feasibly make a fuck you to your haters when your haters are roughly 99% of the world. I mean, like, genuinely, it's like, yeah, Limp Bizkit has fans, they have a following, but also it's just like, how many Limp Bizkit fans know that they're they're a bad band? I mean, like,
they have the following. They have a following in the same way that Manson did.
Jesus. Well, and it too, it's just like Fred Durst, like I feel like he wants to be like a transgressive artist, you know, like that's like, because you make those earlier records like Chocolate Starfish and the hot dog flavored water, and it's just like everything about that album, it's not designed to be good music, it's designed to be an assault. Like, you can't make an album called that with that album cover, with that length, with those songs. It's just like you're trying to do something, you're trying to like make a statement of some kind, but the problem is that you don't know what that statement is. Like Fred, he fucking thinks that he's fucking Frank Zappa. Prove me wrong. He thinks that's what he's doing.
The statement is poo and also pee.
Pee pee poo poo.
Take old
pee
biddies.
pee poo poo.
Yeah.
I want to fucking die.
The medicine in this case is Imodium.
Listening to this album feels like taking 6 Imodium and having like 3 cups of coffee. See what the fuck happens.
And you just sit there and you're just like, oh, this was a bad idea. This was such a bad idea.
So like, I don't even. This is a new human feeling.
I wish I was constipated. This is so much worse.
I will say about the song "Love the Hate," which is like one of the funniest and also one of the worst songs I've heard in a long time. Not even a song, but like
harder.
It's just so funny that like the whole song is a skit in which they're just like these two. Well, I mean, obviously one of them is Fred. I think the other one is like, I don't know, pitch down Fred probably. But it's just like going back and forth about how much Limp Bizkit sucks.
I love the line. His reps suck like a vacuum bag. That's what's up, my G.
Vacuum bags, notorious for their sucking capabilities.
And
that motherfucker Fred Durst is like my Fred ache, makes my head hurt.
It's like he's got Drake's pubes on his chin.
What I love is like the second part of it where the guy like finds out that the other guy used to listen to Limp Bizkit. He's like, I'm gonna beat your ass. Like that's a reason to like just cut all ties with someone because they used to
legit does a fucking
Bizkit.
Maynard impression when he's like, "Jokes on you."
Yeah,
Oh
like that's fucking Maynard.
Yeah. I just looked at I just looked at the lyrics of Pill Popper to just remind me, and I just remembered that like it's a full System of a Down thing where they're like, it's no secret that our governments have fostered a culture of corruption in which special interests and big donors advance their interests at the expense of everyday people.
God.
The pharmaceutical industry does not create cures; they create customers. Literal like Serge Tankian type beat. But,
okay. Gosh. Yeah. Well. God. Yeah.
Like that hook or the joke's on you, and then he just comes in. We don't give a fuck.
So much so that you made a song telling us how much you don't give a fuck.
Yeah. Okay. So the other thing about this song that I find particularly interesting is I just got to ask, who the fuck still hates Limp Bizkit enough to care?
No one.
It's like hating Nickelback nowadays. Like it's like dunking on Nickelback. Like no one cares anymore.
Until now, when you decided to bull your way into my life again, Fred. I haven't thought about you in years.
But for only 30 minutes. And like that's what's so funny is that like he like psychoanalyzes these people at the end. It's like, well, see, this person only says they're hating it to be cool, but secretly they enjoy the music. It's just like, motherfucker, no one listens to your music anymore in the first place. There's the presupposed thing that you have here is not a scenario that exists.
Alexa, play Nobody's Listening by Linkin Park.
This album feels longer than the Mastodon album, and it's a third of length.
And there we go. We've done it. We've come full circle.
And yet none of the songs really feel like they are songs. Like so many of these are like a minute 55, and like 30 seconds of it is taken up by like a spoken word bit at the beginning, and it's just like a minute of just like and then Fred Durst saying some dumb shit, just like, I suck harder than a towel, and it's just like, what?
That's the
fucking bars right there. Holy shit. I'm gonna fucking write that down.
What's funny is I can't tell if that was a line from the album or Jake just made that up, because that's
it's genius.
Thankfully, I did just make it up, but that's the problem, is that you don't know.
Yeah.
I mean, that's actually a bar on Barnacle. No kidding, that's on Barnacle. He says that on the track Barnacle.
August, it's a real shame that I'll never know whether you're right or wrong. I just never will. Okay, does anyone else have anything they want to add about the new Limp Bizkit album?
The thing is that while this album pretty much sucks in every way an album like can suck, is that it's also like the perfectly like inoffensive brand of sucking, to the point where it's just like, I mean, I can't hate this. Like there's nothing about it that really like sticks out to me as being like, I mean, like I dislike all of it, sure. I'm not going to listen to it ever again. I don't really get much fun out of it, but at the same time, it's just like, it just utterly fails at being provocative, to the point where it's just like, I mean, yeah, I just kind of laugh at this album for 30 minutes. I don't hate it. It's bad, but it's like, you know.
I envy you that. This album is offensive solely in the fact that I have to listen to this pasty motherfucker say, yeah, G, or whatever the fuck he says.
Yeah,
G.
That's, yeah.
Just pass away.
Looking like a towel.
Pass away.
Favorite tracks and ratings. Limp Bizkit still suck. I mean, I guess no. I'm guessing if anyone wants to add anything else, go for it. But I think we've probably shined this turd enough. I'll go first. Actually, no, Connor, why don't you go first? We'll do proper reverse order.
Yeah. So my three favorite tracks are Out of Style, Dirty Rotten Biscuit, and I guess Turn It Up, Bitch. My least favorite is the fucking last song, dude. Like, what a horrible song. It's time to go. Toby Mac sounding ass. Yeah, and I give this a 4.
All right. My three favorite tracks are Out of Style, Dad Vibes, and You Bring Out the Worst in Me. Worst track on the album. unquestionably every second of Snaggy Poo. I mean, we didn't even really talk about that song itself, but like, I need a Snaggy Poo is just it's the most fucking awful shit in the world. Whatever. This album gets a 3 from me.
For the 3 favorite tracks, I have "Fuck Off" written. I don't remember that being. I don't think that's on the track list, but it feels apt.
It's a bonus track.
It's too eloquent of a sentiment for Fred Durst.
Yeah. My least favorites are "Love the Hate," "Don't Change," and "Snacky Poo." Really, the latter of which is it feels like a culmination of this album in the way that it gives one the same feeling as some Cheeto fingered 7-year-old running up to you at a public pool and going, "I'm not touching you, I'm not touching you, I'm not touching you."
Like literally like your gross little nephew that no one likes, just kind of fucking going up and burping on your face and being like, "Do you have games on your phone?"
and you hand him your phone, so maybe fuck off for a bit, and he gives it back to you and it's covered in some primordial slime,
unidentifiable substance. It reminds me of like this is a total tangent, but it reminds me of like my high school girlfriend. Her dad
sounds lovely.
Her dad had a foster kid, and I stayed with them one time, and the foster kid was a kleptomaniac, and he snuck into the room I was sleeping in one night and stole my phone and just looked up titties on it.
Really got your ass.
that to me is the energy of what we're getting at.
Oh man.
Yeah.
All right. I think Morgan, did you rate the album?
Oh yeah.
It's 1.5. I look forward to when we review the next Kid Rock album.
My name is Kid.
Kid Rock and Fred Durst are the same person. I think Kid Rock is marginally more annoying, but it's really
Kid Rock is marginally
probably because he's genuinely racist.
Yeah, I mean, at one point he was like, some people got on his ass for saying faggot or something. And it was like, I don't know if you're mad about that. You're probably a faggot. That was his actual response.
That's funny.
As a faggot, no, I'm not angry about that, but you, Kid Rock, are indeed a faggot, so.
I know you are, but what am I?
I know too many nice faggots. You're going to have to.
Fair enough.
August.
Shit. You know, this is a great labor, kind of picking out my favorite tracks on this.
Truly Herculean labor.
Yeah, Herculean, something like that. I don't know. I guess favorite tracks are
Hercules had an easier time slaying the Nemean lion than we had listening to this album.
Well, Out of Style, Dad Vibes, fucking No Meshes of the Afternoon.
My favorite Limp Bizkit song, like La Jetée.
Least favorite track is gonna be Snacky Poo. This gets a 3 out of 10.
All right, sick.
Fucking my favorite Limp Bizkit song, A Brighter Summer Day. My 3 least favorite tracks are Snacky Poo, probably Goodbye, and fucking Empty Hole. Fucking favorite song is fucking Suck a Dick About It, 3.5.
All right, that's an average of 3.0.
Oof.
Let us know what you think of the new Limp Bizkit album. Still sucks. How do you think
don't
up in the
don't let us know.
Bizkit catalog?
Hit us up.
Hit us up in the comments below as well. By the way, something I meant to say at the top of this episode that I'm only just going to say now is that I want to say a special thank you to the people who have joined us as a member, who have signed up and who've hit that join button and who've paid $1. Really appreciate it. Thank you, JD. Thank you, Tremendous. Thank you, Saket. And thank you, Brett, as well. Thank you to the 4 of you so far. You're amazing. And if anyone else is still watching at this point and enjoys what we do and is able to spare $1 a month, hit the button down below. Really helps us out a lot. Obviously, you don't have to, but you do get perks. And we will be adding more perks as the future goes on. We had a really cool live debut of our live stream debut of our Linkin Park video on Tuesday. And that was a lot of fun. More people turned up for that than I expected to, and it was really cool just to have that. So we'll be doing more of those for sure. So yeah, lots going to be happening soon. And yeah, that's basically it for this week's main episode. Make sure you stick around for Tuesday's video on Frank Zappa's Apostrophe, and that's basically all there is to it. August, lead us out.
As always, folks, rock over London, rock on Chicago, united problem solvers. We love logistics.